Welcome to the Florida Gateway College podcast, hashtag FGCXP. You can find this and all other podcasts on the college's YouTube channel or your preferred podcast provider. For today's episode, we're going to be talking with Dr. Elizabeth Carroll, who teaches in our elementary education program. Dr. Carroll, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm good. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into teaching?
Absolutely. So I am originally from Kentucky, and we moved to Florida in 2013. Originally, when I started going to college and thinking about bachelor's and getting my bachelor's, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I loved to read and I knew I loved English, and I thought, I'm just going to go for that in all of my wisdom. So when I started going, and I had children at home and I needed to be with them, and so it just kind of naturally sent me into the teaching field, and I just grew to love it. And I actually started in secondary education. So I started at the high school level, and I taught for 11 years in Kentucky at a high school. And then when we moved to Florida, I taught at High Springs Community School for a year, and then came over here to FGC. Been here now for 10 years.
So you taught mostly high school. What subjects did you teach, and how was your experience as a high school teacher?
I loved it. I mean, teaching high school is just an experience that's difficult to explain unless you've done it. But
like most things, I'm sure.
I know. No, so I taught English and Allied Language Arts. So I taught theater, and I taught, and we'd put on huge productions. It was a lot of fun. We did Cinderella and Annie and Grease, and we just had a lot of fun with that. I taught broadcasting one year. That was not my forte, but I dug in my heels and did my best. And I didn't do that very often. But mostly, it's my regular ed classes were just my English classes, and I taught 9th through 12th grade when I was teaching in high school. So it depended on the year, depending on what grade I got.
So after teaching in high school for that time, you decided to transition into higher education. So what made you decide that it was time to move from teaching high schoolers to teaching adults?
So I did have some experience in the elementary and the middle school teaching field as well. And then when I saw this position open, and I'll never forget, it was 2014, and I saw the position, and it just was like, I want to put in for this. I don't know if they'll accept me or not, but I want to put in for it. And when you think about becoming a beginning teacher, that is probably one of the hardest things a teacher will go through, is those first, 3 years, and just having that level of support. And I just knew from my own experiences that I just wanted to give beginning teachers, in whatever capacity that I could, just that level of support, just to say, hey, I got you. And interestingly, and I don't know if you're talking about this or not, when I got my doctorate, my dissertation is on case study of the social and emotional well-being of beginning teachers, because that's where my heart is. This is with beginning teachers and students, and helping them in the classroom to say, hey, it's okay. We've all been there, and none of us are perfect, and we all make mistakes, and that's okay, because tomorrow is a new day. And I love that. And the opportunities that I've had to work with beginning teachers has just been phenomenal.
There's two things that come to mind when you said that. The first thing is, when every teacher is new to the classroom, it takes a while to develop a voice. Mm-hmm. Like, you think you have a way to lecture, to communicate, to get your message through, and that takes a while to figure out your best way to do that. And helping new teachers through that, especially, in this case, if they don't have kids, or if they don't have family members that have young children, this could be the first time they're exposed to teaching to children. And that's a whole new dynamic that we'll talk a little bit about later. But the other thing is that when we're teachers, each year we get to help an X number of students. And in the elementary area, it could be a 15 to a 25 or 30 person class. And you're spending 9 months helping those children. Whereas in this case, you're teaching X number of people to teach that. It's almost, you're helping now hundreds of kids each semester, because those students that you have at college are going to have a much broader influence. And so it's almost like a macro look at it versus a micro, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. So when you put it like that, it's like, whoa, wow, that's a lot on your shoulders. But it's just so important. Like, I just feel so strongly the importance of providing that support to our beginning teachers, whether when I was doing EPI, like whether they're transferring or, in from another area, like maybe they taught, sold insurance for 15 years and now they're saying, I really feel like I want to be a teacher and I feel like I can impact students in our communities, or whether they're in elementary ed and just now starting to get their bachelor's degree. Either way, they're beginning teachers, and just that support from myself or whoever, Dr. Carswell, Dr. Welch, whoever is in that, Dr. Turecki, is just so important. And what's fantastic about FGC, and this is one of the things I love, is that all of our students know that they can come and call us even 5 years later. They'll give us a call and be like, hey, Dr. Carroll, got this problem came up. Do you have any advice or something? And I love to help them with that. But not only that, I know we haven't even, kind of got off on a tangent here. We even have people coming into our programs that are like from the prison systems and juvenile justice, and even into our regular prison systems, and teaching GED classes. And I just love that they're wanting to get their professional teaching certificate, because that's going to help them help these their students even more.
There's a ton of way that we can make a difference, and the populations are vast.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely, 100%.
So you had mentioned EPI. Could you tell us about EPI? I know that's where you started at the college, and what the purpose of that program is here.
Yes. So, and I loved EPI. Like, I loved being there, and it was really a hard decision to even go over to the Bachelor of Elementary Ed. It was something that I really thought long and hard about before I went and, consented to do that, or accepted that. But EPI is Alternative Certification. It's the Educator Preparation Institute, and it is, alternative certification. So anyone who has a bachelor's degree in another area, not education, and wants to get their professional teaching certificate would actually take these courses. So they would, submit their transcripts to the Department of Education, request a statement of eligibility, and then when they receive that statement of eligibility, it'll say like, oh, you need X, Y, and Z courses, and then that's where, EPI would come in. And EPI has actually grown and changed in the last few years since Dr. Turecki has kind of taken that over. And like we were talking about earlier, she's just fantastic. She's amazing. And, anybody that has questions about it, I would say definitely call Dr. Turecki, because there's a lot of new things out there, a lot of new changes that the DOE has implemented, and it's for the better. It's very helpful to all of the teachers in our communities.
That sounds like a really great program, because people can study something when they're 18 to 22 and really feel like that's the career path they want to take. And then suddenly life takes them a different direction. And with the type of salaries that are now available to new teachers, that it's becoming more and more of an attractive program. So if someone studied history or something like that, that would be a great transition to get into the classroom if they wanted to do that. So
absolutely.
That's what the EPI program does.
Yes.
So now you said that you moved into the Bachelor's of Elementary Education program here. Could you tell us some stuff about that? And as you explain, I'll ask a few follow-up questions.
Yeah, sure. So our Bachelor of Elementary Education program was approved, and we started in, I know I'm going to kind of get the dates a little off, so I'll just, our first cohort started in spring of 2021, and I accepted the position as the coordinator and professor of this program in fall of 2021. And so I've just kind of been taking it and learning as I go as well, and building coursework and doing different things as well, making sure that the coursework is what our students need and what our new teachers are going to need. And then as standards are changing with the DOE and teacher standards are changing, making sure that those are all kind of aligned, and it's a lot, but
constantly updating courses.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just the norm. And, but anyone who wants to get into our program, they would have their AA, preferably in education, and they would need to see Miss Allison Zarnicki, because she is awesome. She gets them set up for success to be right, to go right into our program in the BE bachelor's program. So we are an on-campus program, and I think that's very important. We're not online at all. And I know that that's been a lot of questions like, well, I really need an online program. And we understand that. We understand different lifestyles. And so I really try hard to create academic programs that are going to suit that person. Or I shouldn't say academic programs, I apologize, academic plan for that person. So if that person comes to me and says, Dr. Carroll, I can only take one class this semester, but I really want to get into the program and I just want to continue working towards my goal, then that's what we're going to do. How can I help you to where you're at least in here? And we want to get you in, and we want to have teachers in our communities that are going back and teaching in our community. So we want to have our students here, and that they're going back into Baker and Dixie and Sewanee and wherever, and they're teaching in the classrooms.
So you said that a student needs to get an AA before they can get into the Bachelor of Elementary Education program. So that means your program is 2 years long?
Yes, full time. It's a 2.5 if they go traditional part-time. So what I mean by that is if they come and can only take 1 or 2 classes per semester, it might take them close to 3 years, but traditional full-time will be 2 years, and traditional part-time will be 2.5.
What was your thought process in making the program entirely face-to-face? Was it because whenever they're going to become teachers that it's a face-to-face modality in the elementary system? Was that your thought process?
Well, and I didn't really have anything to do with that decision. That was Dr. Carswell. But I agree with that 1,000%, just exactly what you said. But also, you can't teach in a bubble. You have to be in there. You have to learn what it looks like. You have to understand, like, this is what it looks like. This is what it doesn't look like. This is effective teaching. This is ineffective teaching. This is evidence-based practices. This is not evidence-based. And really seeing that and having those conversations is not something you can get on a discussion board.
I agree with you 100%, having been in that field myself
Yes.
at some point in my life. Tell me about the support students have, not only with faculty, but with student support to help them if they're struggling.
Oh, wow. We have, well, first of all, and I know I work here, but FGC is just awesome in their support systems that they have in place for students. It's just fantastic. So on the level of the Bachelor of Elementary Ed, when they're in the classroom, Dr. Welch is, she oversees the internship process, and she is just always there. Our office doors are always open. The students know that they can just pop in unless, I'm in a meeting or something. They know that they can just pop in and laugh and cry and talk about what they need. And that's just, a wonderful thing that we have in our building. But if they need help with taking one of the teacher exams, like the general knowledge exam or the elementary ed, They also know that they can come to us and say, Dr. Carroll, I need additional tutoring in reading. Can you sit down with me? Absolutely. Can you do Monday at 4? That kind of thing. But we've also worked with our Student Success Center and our tutoring center over here, and they have come up with some plans to help our students as well. On Monday and Tuesday, they have specific plans in place for those exams. So that has just been, Christina has just been wonderful over there in helping Dr. Welch and Dr. Carswell get that set up. And our students know that they can always come to us if they need additional help.
You had mentioned that Dr. Welch does internships. So that's a unique part of this program compared to most programs at the institution. So students do coursework where they essentially learn to become teachers, where they go over how to teach reading, how to teach math, etc. Then they go out in the field.
They do. And so this is kind of like the beauty of Dr. Welch and I. When we kind of first met, we just were like, oh, hello, sister. Like we just meshed. And so it was wonderful because I can say, oh, Dr. Welch, we're doing so-and-so in classroom management or in reading or in math classes. And I'll say, can you build this in to where they're seeing this in the internship course? And so we have that relationship, which has just been wonderful for the students as well. So internships they have to take 4 internships. And sometimes if they're doing traditional full-time or traditional part-time, it's going to be on a set schedule. If they're not, it might look a little different as far as like when they go, but the course itself, the internship course, looks the same. So they, internships 1, 2, and 3, they do in the field, 20 hours in the field. Most of them do way more than that because we encourage them to be in those classrooms. Dr. Welch will go and sit with them in the classrooms and say, hey, see what that teacher's doing? Do you remember learning about that in the classroom? And that just is making those connections with them from theory to application, which has just been fantastic as well. And then they have their senior internship, which is where they are actually the teacher in the classroom for the full semester.
So the first set of internships is classroom observation, and the second one is the student teaching component.
Similar, yes. And we use a lot of data-based information, especially we build. So internship 1, they're just doing basic observation. Internship 2, they're taking and working maybe with small groups and taking what they learned and putting it into practice. Internship 3, they're teaching whole class. They're really working in there. And we recently instituted a professional book checkout. So they are required within their internships to check out a professional book each semester, comment on it, read it, review it, look at these things, think about what this book is saying, and really critically analyze it and what the research is saying, what the evidence is saying, and actually look, is this a valid teacher book that I would want to have, in my professional library? And so we've recently instituted that. And then next semester, we're going to institute webinars where they have to do that within their internships as well.
Great. I think that's a real component because, having gone through this in Nevada, you have 100 hours, not 60, and it has to be 4 different teachers. So you would do 25 at one school, 25 at another. But when you're watching someone teach, it does nothing compared to when you're at a small table group with the student trying to help 5 or 6 students with their flashcards and then teaching the whole class. So the progression of internship 1 to 2 to 3 is really scaffolding those skills, right?
Absolutely. So when they do get to that senior internship, they're not deer in headlights. They feel like, I got this. I have the skill set and I can do it. I may mess up. I may not know everything every day, but I have the skills and I can do it. And that's where we want them to be.
And the other thing I think it does is if somebody is truly unsure whether this is what they want to do, they're not immediately an internship 3 at the very end, and they need to do that in order to get their degree. It's, maybe I want to get into secondary ed, or I want to teach 6th graders instead, and seeing that early on and knowing how the population is, I think is really good.
Absolutely. And we do, we try to, Dr. Carswell is really good with placement. She makes sure that they're placed in a place that's going to be the best situation for them. And she tries really hard with that. And so their first semester, they're in K through 2nd. We try to give them a variety of placements just because they need that. Just like you said, they need to see kind of where they fit and where they need to be. And second internship is 3rd and 4th grade, and third internship is 5th and 6th. And then we try to place them in the area where they want for senior internship. It doesn't always work out, but we do try.
Yeah, in Nevada, they gave us an option of what our preferred grade levels were. Then they would do their best to accommodate.
Yeah.
I'm a student in your program, and I live in Baker County. As part of these placements, I'm going to be located somewhere close to my house, or is there a chance that I'm going to be put in Gilchrist County?
No. So when they fill out the initial paperwork, if they say they live in Baker County, then we try to place them in Baker County. So we've had people, though, in Baker, for instance, and said, I've grew up in Baker my whole life. I want to see something different. Can I be placed in Columbia County? And Dr. Carswell will work with that. So, yeah. But if they're working in a specific school, like if they're a para, we do work hard to make sure that they're placed in that particular school as well.
Makes sense. Well, it sounds like an amazing program that has already had a big impact on our community. So now I want to talk about that book that's in front of you.
Yes. This is O. Henry. And so I'm pretty excited about it. It was actually came out on May the 7th. So it's October 7th. I mean, this is the anniversary day. All
right. We're looking at 5-month anniversary of O. Henry.
Yeah. So it was actually released on May the 7th of this year. And it has just exploded. I have been so blown away, wow, with the response from it. And I don't know, people from California, or there was somebody in Oregon was like, oh my gosh, I just bought this book and I just can't tell you how much I love it. And I don't know, that was just really sweet.
Are those from comments you're seeing on Amazon?
On Instagram. Oh. So yeah, so when I created, I'm not a social media guru by any means. I'm so bad at it. And I try so hard. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do great at this. And I just fall flat. But I'm really trying with social media to do at least Instagram, Facebook. And I'm going to break out into YouTube. I have some great videos of my animals, and eventually I will do that.
Oh, that's great. Step by step, though, right?
Yes. I do get off on tangents, so you just have to reel me back in.
That's why we have editors, right?
That's right.
What was your inspiration behind the book?
So it's kind of twofold in a way. So I have Nigerian dwarf goats, and they are just so precious. I've raised them since they were babies, and they are named after some childhood authors that I loved. So we have O. Henry, but it's spelled a little differently, and Agatha Christie and Edgar Allan Poe. So we have Edgar, Agatha, and Henry. And then we recently adopted another baby to our family, and we named her L.M. Montgomery, so Anna Green Gables. So we just call her Lucy, though. But so I actually have our goats, and they're just such a joy to be around. If you have a bad day, just go sit out in the goat pen for a couple hours in the evening. They will just cheer you right up. But my grandchildren were actually kind of the inspiration. But before that, I'd already had these ideas rolling around my head, and I had worked with a lady who is just an amazing educator. And she and I got together, and she said, Elizabeth, I need a task chart for a child who's really struggling. The child was nonverbal, just really struggling with a lot of different things. And we came up, he loved goats. And so I was like, well, we're going to make this task chart for, and we're going to use pictures of my goats. And he loves Serena Williams, who is the goat, so we had to kind of incorporate that and the greatest of all time. So we were like, well, Henry's kind of the greatest of all time as well, because Henry the goat is pretty awesome. And so we had created that, and then that just kind of got this idea rolling around in my head about, there's a lot of children out there who need things that aren't necessarily on any kind of a paper from a doctor or anything else. And sometimes people just don't know what to do. I just don't know what to do with this, with this child in my classroom or in my home or whatever. And so my daughter had called me, and she had been struggling with her son. She's got two, and she had been struggling with a couple of them. And so she says, I just don't know what to do with Evan. Evan is just all over the place. He just runs until he literally hits a wall. And then he'll be like, oh, I hit a wall. So he was getting in trouble, but he didn't realize why he was getting in trouble. He just knew that his brain was just going a million miles faster, and he couldn't slow down. And so that's where kind of Henry came in at. And so Henry is just a little goat who is always on the go, and he constantly gets in trouble. And he constantly runs into things and knocks over lamps, as you can kind of see there. And he doesn't understand why he always forgets his homework. He doesn't understand, why his friends are always laughing at him and his teacher is always getting him into trouble. And so he has a really sweet neighbor named Mr. Neely, who is patterned after one of our miniature horses. So we have 4 miniature goats and 2 miniature horses, and this is Mr. Neely.
No full-size animals?
None.
Right.
Even our dog is a little miniature Maltese. And so Mr. Neely gives him some tools to help him be successful in school. And so this is one of them, and I made these up, and it just says, sometimes we all need help remembering what to do. And that's just one of the tools that Henry uses, is just a little keychain. And it doesn't have to be fancy things or, anything that came from a store. It could just be something that we create at home for our children, and that's okay.
Amazing. You never know where inspiration's going to come from. And what led you from having that inspiration to feeling the need to write something? And how long did it take from that initial idea of starting this story to finishing a book that you thought, oh my God, this is good? How'd that happen?
Well, that's so funny, because I actually never thought it was really good, to be honest. My husband was like, you've got to turn it in. Just submit it to a publisher. If they say no, then it's no. And if they say yes, then it's yes. So I finally got the courage up, but I actually wrote it in 2021, and I submitted it in 2022. And it just kind of was like, I just sat out and wrote it out, and then I'd go back and, revise it a little bit. And I finally submitted it to a publisher, Mascot Books, in early 2022. And they came back to me, I'm sorry. It was late 2021 when I submitted it, and they came back to me in early 22. I'll get my dates right here in a second. And said, we love the concept of your book, and we would love to work with you. And I was just like crying. I was at work at the time, and I was in the hallway, and nobody was in the building except for the teachers. And I was like, oh my gosh. Debbie thought something was wrong.
She thought you saw a snake or something?
No, I was like, oh my gosh. Because I didn't even tell anybody that I had written a book, because the only people that knew were my husband and me. So and then it just kind of went from there. And after many revisions and working with the illustrator, Aegis Prajego, who is amazing, we kind of got it going, and it was released on May 7th of this year.
You have to tell the story that you've told me about your illustrator, about where your illustrator's from, and interpreting different things within the book because that culture is way different than ours.
Yes. So the illustrator, Mr. Pacheco, is from Indonesia. And so this was just been really a great opportunity. And so my publisher came to me and she was like, she said, you can find your own illustrator or we can help you with that process. And I said, please help me with that process. I don't feel comfortable with this. I know what I want in my head. And so we worked it out. It was this whole process. And we finally came across Aegis Pacheco. And he was just amazing, from Indonesia. And he said, in part of the book, Henry leaves the circle of when the teacher's reading and circle time. And he goes to the centers because he's just like done. Like, I'm done listening to the story. I'm bored. I'm going to go play with my toys in the centers, and which is exactly what one of my grandchildren actually did. He's like, I'm done. And so I said, well, he goes to play in the centers, and Aegis was like, of the room? I was like, no, not the center of the room, like the centers where learning happens. And he was like, oh, okay. So I had to kind of show him pictures, and we got it worked out. And he was just, his illustrations of it are just fantastic of what he came up with. Because I said, I sent him a picture of my grandson, and then I sent him pictures of like different things happening, and he got it. He just took my words and just, I don't even know. He just exploded with his illustrations, and he was just phenomenal.
How long did that process take from the time that you hooked up with him to the time that all of the illustrations for the book were finished?
So from the time they contacted me to finishing up final revisions of this actual storyline was probably about 4.5 to 5 months, probably because of me. Because I just kept like sending it like, I don't know, I don't think this is good enough, that kind of thing. And then we finally got him on board, and he just, made it come to life, which was just amazing. And that was probably about another 4 to 5 months, maybe even 6 months, because there was just, what they were wearing and, the colors of their shirts, and even just how the hats looked, it was just all this thing. So we would go back and forth with that. But all in all, it was probably a little bit longer than it should have been because of Elizabeth Carroll, not because of them, just because I was like, I just don't know. Is this good? And then I'd wait a week or so before I sent back, go ahead, or let's not go ahead, or something like that. So.
Have you started your official book tour?
Yeah. There's no book tour, but I am, we do Instagram and Facebook and social media. And I did go read at Barnes & Noble, which was so much fun in Gainesville. They were just amazing. They've asked me to return in December. So I'm like, yes, I will absolutely come back. And we're hoping to get a few more bookstores, and go do some readings there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any follow-up books planned?
I do. So it's already done, and we're just waiting. I really wanted to see this whole process through. I wasn't sure any of it. I didn't know how any of it went, or if I was even navigating any of this correctly or not. So I just jumped feet first, like, let's do it. And pretty much how I do a lot of things, actually.
Me too.
But I was just like, let's see what happens. Like, what are they going to do? Say no? So that's what I went with. But I do have the other one. It's called Henry Makes a Friend. And it's based on another one of my grandchildren. I have 5 grandchildren, by the way, with another one on the way. So I have 4 grandsons and 1 little girl. And we just found out the next one is going to be a boy. So this little girl is going to be so spoiled. But again, tangent. But one of my grandchildren, he was diagnosed with a lot. He's had some different challenges. And so he does have ODD, oppositional defiance disorder. He's now in 1st grade, and he's really had a lot of hard challenges. And he has been diagnosed with autism and just some different things, where my daughter and son-in-law are just amazing in working with him. But he's just different, and he just makes his own path, and it's amazing. And I just love him for doing that. But he really struggles in making friends. And so it was probably last year and a half ago, my daughter called me and she's like, oh my gosh. And she's crying. And I said, what's wrong, Rebecca? She said, Lucas made a friend. And she was so excited. And they go to the park together. So he finally made like his one little friend, because he really, it's hard to make friends when you hit people. So he was really struggling. And so he just made the friend, and then that just set it off. But Henry is not the one who suffers from ODD, but Henry is the one who embraces and makes a friend with a child who is new to his school and has ODD and really suffers from some challenges there.
Also, Henry is a sweet kid.
I hope so. He's a sweet little goat in real life too. So,
where can I get the book?
So it is on Amazon, of course. It's on Barnes & Noble. You can find it on Barnes & Noble, and you can also find it on Mascot Books. And my website is in the back. And also I have, there we go. If you scan that little QR code, there we go. Scan the little QR code, it takes you to my website. And that has the link to my Instagram page. It also has a video of the goats and pictures of my real goats, and coloring pages and activity pages that you can print out and do some math work, like Henry does his math homework. So you can actually print out some of those if you want to, and do some vowel teams or color pages or whatever you want to do. So that's all on the website.
If I would have told you 3 years ago that you'd have your own website, what would you have told me?
I would be like, no, Brandon, not going to happen. I actually told my daughter, I was like, you know what? She said, okay. I said, Becca, I will pay you to build this website for me. And she said, Mama, you will never learn if you don't do it yourself. I said, okay. She said, but I will help you with it. I said, thank you.
Oh, so you put in the legwork, huh?
I did. But she kind of polished it up. So she's the good one on that.
Well, fantastic. Congratulations on your book on elementary education and everything you do for the college.
Thank you.
It was great to have you today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carroll, for joining us, and we will see you next time.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.